Have you had a situation where an employee posts something on their personal social media that is either very politically charged, potentially politically offensive, or just generally offensive? And does that reflect poorly on your business? Well, I'm going to walk you through today is how to handle that particular situation. Hi, Paul Goyette here again from Goyette, Ruano, Thompson. Now, before we get started, what I'd like to do is do me a huge favor and like this video and hit the subscribe button so we can keep bringing you content like this. That helps me out a lot. Okay, so especially in light of the recent Charlie Kirk assassination, which was highly political, have you had a situation where any one of your employees in your company posts something either highly political or something that could be offensive to your potential customers? The retort you typically run into from an employee or from some outsider who's not minding their own business is, the First Amendment allows me to say whatever the hell I want to say. And let me be clear about this right now. The First Amendment does not protect you or any of your employees for employment-related speech or conduct of any kind. The First Amendment governs government or regulates government activity. So if you're speaking on a street corner, you're posting on your social media, you're writing a book or an article, the government cannot jail you, for example, because of what you said. But your employer certainly can regulate that, and that means they could limit your ability to speak, they could terminate you, or they could otherwise discipline you in the workplace. That's the first very important distinction to recognize. As an employer, your employees do not have First Amendment protection to say whatever the heck they want to say out there if it reflects poorly on your company. In California, you need to be aware of two labor code sections, Labor Code Section 1101 and Labor Code Section 1102. And what these sections state generally is you cannot harass or discriminate against your employees for their political speech, for their otherwise protected off-duty political work. But that doesn't mean you can't take action against employees who make political speeches, post political commentary that adversely affects your business. Now, let me give you an example, and it goes back to the famous Michael Jordan quote as to why he never really got into political conversations, because he said, and you remember this, he's selling Air Jordans. He goes, Republicans buy basketball shoes too. He did not want to offend his customer base, potentially half of his customer base out there, by diving into some kind of political issue. And as an employer that you probably are offering a service, or maybe you're selling some kind of goods, you have customers of every size and shape out there politically, every gender, probably every ethnic background, and so on. So as an employer, and we try to stay neutral on just about all of those things because we have customers across the spectrum. Also in California, you need to be aware of like the Fair Employment and Housing Act and the other anti-discrimination laws, and there's a federal law to that effect too, that you can't discriminate or harass your employees because of a protected class or activity. But that also cuts both ways. That means that your employees cannot harass or discriminate other coworkers or employees based on a protected class or activity. And as an employer, you could be held liable if you do not act to protect those potentially victimized employees. So as a California company, what do? Well, the first thing I would recommend is you have a policy and have it published in your employee handbook that describes what an employee can or can't do related to their social media. Now, for example, the policy should read, they can do whatever they want on their social media. They can post pictures of their vacation, what they're having for dinner that night, but you want to have the policy include that their social media cannot allow that employee to make statements that are damaging to the employer. Also, they cannot represent the employer while they're posting these offensive or potentially offensive social media posts. If you're a uniformed company, for example, they cannot be wearing the company uniform that identifies them as an employee of the company when they're making these social media posts. The policy should also state that as the employer, you reserve the right to take disciplinary action up to and including termination for any employee that posts something on their private social media or elsewhere that is damaging to the company and potentially hurts the business of the employer. As a practical matter, what I would tell you to do is simply document that, and then you can take the necessary action you feel is appropriate against that employee. You don't have to have specific statistics saying, I lost X number of customers because of this statement, but you have to have an analysis at least that shows that that statement potentially offends or has in fact offended some of our customers, and as a result, they are less likely to do business with us. Now, there's another consideration, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about, and that is you might have a significant number of your other employees who are offended or who may feel they are being harassed or discriminated against. For example, we've had this come up. An employee will post a particularly strong anti-religious point of view, and probably directing it at a significant group of their coworkers who have strong religious beliefs. So as an employer, you do have an obligation to protect that group of employees, which may require you to take action against the one offending employee or small group of offending employees. Other thing, of course, like any policy that you enforce, you need to apply those policies consistently. So if you have a family member working in your company who's posting all kinds of crazy garbage out on social media and you do nothing about it, but then some other employee who works maybe in a distant facility somewhere posts something and you terminate them, that could be a problem. Apply your policies with consistency. Everyone now has a license to say and write and post whatever they want, which is fine, but it cannot have a negative implication on your business. And as the owner or manager or CEO of a company, you do have an obligation to look out for the best interests of the company and take action against those offending employees if necessary. Well, what action is that? Well, it could start with a counseling memo, a sit down, have a talk to the employee and document that, tell them they can't post that type of material and they need to be careful. If they do it again, they're going to get fired. And again, do me a favor, hit the like button down below. Please subscribe to our channel. And if you have any questions on this, or if this is a problem within your company, feel free to reach out to me directly and I'll be happy to help you out.